Okay, let's just dive right in. I have to be honest with you, right out of the gate. When you said we were doing a deep dive on the architecture of modern cryptocurrency, I had a very specific picture in my head. Python scripts, charts on hash rates, maybe some white paper from a guy in a hoodie.
That's the usual route, yeah.
Right. But then I opened the dossier you sent over, and the first thing I see isn't code. It's a citation from Politics and Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle.
It's a bit of a curveball, I'll admit.
A curveball. It feels more like a time warp. We're talking about a philosopher in a toga, 2,300 years ago. He wrote about household management and biology. I mean, he didn't even have a concept for the number zero, let alone a blockchain. And this report, the Geometric Completion, is basically claiming he's the lead software architect behind Bitcoin.
It does sound absurd on the surface. I had the exact same reaction when I first saw this research. But the mission of this deep dive isn't to force a connection. It's to look at the data in the report and ask a very specific and maybe uncomfortable question. Is Bitcoin actually an invention? Or is it a restoration?
A restoration of what?
Of a kind of geometric justice, a justice that humanity, lost for 2 millennia. The argument here is that Satoshi Nakamoto didn't just write a clever piece of code in 2008. He finished a blueprint for sound money that Aristotle drafted but simply couldn't build. He lacked the technology.
So Satoshi's the contractor and Aristotle is the architect.
Precisely. And to understand why that matters for your wallet today, not in theory, but in practice, we have to start with the metaphysics. Aristotle didn't just look at a coin, he looked at the soul of value, and he broke it down into two opposing forces, physis and nomos.
Okay, let's get definitions first. I see these terms everywhere in the notes. Physis, that's like physics.
Correct. Physis is nature, reality. In terms of value, physis is something valuable because of what it is and the work it takes to make it. Think of a bushel of wheat.
Okay, sunlight, water, physical labor, it has calories. It keeps you alive.
Exactly. Its value is tied to the physical world. It's undeniable. If a king declares wheat worthless, it doesn't matter. You can still eat it. That's physis. Now, on the other side of that coin, you have nomos.
And I'm guessing that's the opposite.
Nomos means law or custom or convention. It's value that exists only because a group of people or a government agrees it exists.
So, because I said so, money.
In a nutshell, and this is the fundamental conflict, Aristotle argued that for money to be just, for it to not, rot a society from the inside out, it has to be a mix of both. It needs physis and nomos.
But the report says we're not at that intersection anymore.
No, we're miles away from it. The report points to the Nixon shock of 1971 as the breaking point.
Right, taking the U.S. dollar off the gold standard.
Exactly. When that happened, we severed the link to gold, which was the physical anchor, the physis. In that moment, the money in your pocket became pure nomos, a floating abstraction. It requires no physical work to create, just a policy decision.
It's fiat. Let it be done.
And because it's pure nomos, it creates this disconnect from reality, which is why the report calls Bitcoin digital physis.
Wait, hold on there. That sounds like a contradiction. Digital physis. How can a string of code have a physical nature? I mean, you can't touch a Bitcoin. It's not a rock.
This is the hardest hurdle for people to get over. And the answer is in the mining, the proof of work mechanism.
I hear proof of work all the time, but usually it's about, uses too much energy.
Right, but you have to flip that perspective. Why does it use energy? Aristotle said money has to be a surety for future exchange. It's proof that I did work in the past. Bitcoin creates this surety by literally transforming electrical energy, a thermodynamic reality, into cryptographic truth.
Okay, explain that mechanism. How does electricity become truth?
Think of it like a global lottery that runs every 10 minutes. To buy a ticket, you have to burn a specific amount of electricity. You can't fake it. You can't just say, I did the work. You have to mathematically prove you burned the energy to find the solution.
So the energy bill is the receipt.
The energy bill is the anchor. The report calls it thermodynamic cost. You cannot forge a Bitcoin because you cannot forge the energy it took to mine it. You can print a dollar bill for basically nothing. You can type an extra zero on a bank ledger for free, but you cannot create a Bitcoin without interacting with the laws of physics.
So if gold is physical work because you dig it out of the ground, Bitcoin is digital work because you have to burn energy to pull it out of the math.
Exactly. It resolves that ancient critique of empty money. It grounds the digital information in physical law. That is physis.
Okay, I follow the physics connection. But the report takes a darker turn here. It talks about unnatural wealth. And it quotes Aristotle sounding pretty angry about something called Chromastike.
Chromatistike. It's a mouthful.
What does it actually mean?
It was Aristotle's way of separating two ways of getting money. First, you have household management, getting wealth to support your life, your family. That's natural. But then you have chromatistike, which is the pursuit of money just for money's sake.
So greed.
More specific than that, he really hated usury interest. Money breeding money. He called it unnatural because money is sterile. He said currency should not reproduce like cattle.
Because a gold coin doesn't have a baby coin.
Right. But in our modern system, money does breed. And the report draws a direct line from that ancient warning to the Federal Reserve data we have today.
I was looking at these charts. The M2 money supply.
And this is where the philosophy hits your bank account. The report cites FRD data showing that since 1960, the U.S. M2 money supply has grown at an annual average of 6.82%.
Almost 7% a year. That's the baseline inflation of the supply.
That's the baseline dilution of your labor. But look at the spike. During the pandemic response in 2020, we saw a 26.7% annual increase.
26% in 1 year.
Yes. In a single year, the system printed over a quarter of the entire money stock that had existed before. Now, Aristotle would look at that and ask, did our economy grow by 26%? Did the wheat harvest grow by 26%?
No way. We were all in lockdown. Production went down.
Exactly. So what is that extra money? It's chromatistike in its purest form. Money breeding itself without any connection to reality. And the result, according to this report, is the systemic theft of time. Your $100 from 2019 was just retroactively devalued.
It violates his concept of a limit.
He called it paris, a limit, a boundary. Natural things have them. A tree only grows so tall. Our current fiat system has no ceiling. It creates a state of unlimited desire, which Aristotle saw as a form of madness.
So the argument is that we're living inside a financial system that is, by Aristotelian definition, insane.
Insane and unjust, because it lets those with access to the printer steal value from those who have to work for it.
Okay, so that sets the stage for the restoration.
Okay.
If the current system is broken, how does Bitcoin fix it? The report lists 4 attributes.
Right. These are Aristotle's prerequisites for good money: durability, portability, divisibility, and scarcity.
We've heard these before in econ class.
We have. But the report argues we've never actually achieved them. Not fully. Bitcoin is the first time in history we hit 100% on all 4.
Let's stress test that. Attribute 1. Durability. I mean, gold is pretty durable. It doesn't rust.
It doesn't rust, no, but it degrades.
Yeah.
The report notes that ancient silver drachmas lost about 0.12% of their mass every year just from being passed around. Friction literally wipes away value.
It wears down into dust.
Bitcoin, on the other hand, relies on mathematical immutability. It has no mass to lose. The report points to the node count. As of early 2026, there are 24,764 reachable global nodes.
And a node is what exactly? For someone who thinks Bitcoin just lives in a cloud.
A node is just a computer. Could be a server, a laptop that runs the Bitcoin software and holds a copy of the entire ledger, every transaction ever made.
So there are almost 25,000 copies of the truth scattered all over the world.
Correct. To destroy Bitcoin, you'd have to destroy all of them at the same time. The report calls this cosmic permanence. Since 2013, the network has had 100% uptime. No bank can claim that.
Okay, so it beats silver. Attribute 2. Portability.
This is all about friction. Aristotle wanted money to be easily carried. Gold has high value, but try moving $10 million in gold bars.
You'd need a truck, armed guards, insurance. It's a whole operation.
And you have to cross borders where it can be seized. Bitcoin decouples value from physical weight. In 2024 alone, the Bitcoin network transferred $3.43 trillion in value.
Trillions.
Trillions moved instantly anywhere for a small fee with a zero physical effort. It's Aristotle's dream of frictionless commerce on a global scale.
Okay, on to number 3, divisibility. This is where I usually get stuck. If one Bitcoin is worth, say, $100,000, how do I buy a sandwich?
You can, actually. And this ties back to Aristotle's formula for justice. He had this ratio, OEBB equals DCC, proportional reciprocity.
Which means?
It means if a builder builds a house and a shoemaker makes shoes, you need middle-term money. That can be divided precisely enough to measure the difference between their labor.
Right, you can't just shave off a little gold dust from a bar accurately.
Exactly. Gold is terrible for small trades. Bitcoin solves this with the Satoshi. One Bitcoin is divisible into 100 million of them.
The penny of the Bitcoin world.
Much smaller, a fraction of a penny. And with new tech, we're talking about millisatoshis. It creates near infinite divisibility. So it can measure the value of a skyscraper or a single stream of music with equal precision. the perfect intermediate for justice.
Which brings us to the big one. Attribute 4. Scarcity.
The golden mean. Aristotle's balance between excess and deficiency. In money, this is the limit on issuance. We already know the dollar fails this test.
The printer goes brr.
Bitcoin solves this with the 21 million hard cap. The code explicitly states there will never be more than 21 million coins.
But here's the question I always hear. Can't they just change the code? What stops the developers from waking up and deciding to make it 42 million?
That's where the game theory protects the philosophy. Remember those 24,000 nodes?
Yeah.
Every single one of them is enforcing the rules. If a developer wrote code that said, create more Bitcoin, the nodes would just reject it. The network wouldn't recognize it as valid.
So to change the supply, you'd need to convince everyone who holds Bitcoin to devalue their own money.
And exactly, which no rational person would ever do. It creates a no-muscle law that is unbreakable. It creates that Paris, the limit Aristotle insisted on.
So if we zoom out,
Yeah.
the narrative here is just, it's fascinating. We think of history as this steady march of progress,
Yeah.
shells, coins, paper, digital. We assume the dollar is the most advanced version.
The report argues the complete opposite. It argues history has been a regression, a slide backwards.
Walk me through that timeline.
You start with the Greek drachma,
Yeah.
silver. It had physis. But then emperors got greedy, needed to fund wars, so they clipped the coins, mixed in copper.
Debasement.
By the end of the Roman Empire, the coins were basically worthless. That was the first collapse. Then we rebuilt with the gold standard, a recovery of physis. But then came the World Wars, and finally, 1971.
The final break.
We regressed from sound money back to debt, subordinated to political will. We lost the physis entirely. The last 50 years haven't been a modern miracle. They've been a period of monetary darkness.
But the authors claim we're waking up from that.
We're seeing a recovery, and they use a really interesting metric to prove it. Ancient supply.
I love that term. Sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
It's a technical term from on-chain analysis. It means Bitcoin that hasn't moved from its wallet address in 7 years or more.
So these are coins that people bought and just held. They didn't sell during the crashes. They didn't sell during the huge run-ups. They're just dormant.
The data shows that approximately 17% of the total Bitcoin supply is now ancient supply.
Wow. That is a massive chunk of the market just sitting there. Why?
That's the key question. The report argues that these holders are the proof of the thesis. They aren't treating it like a casino chip. They're treating it as surety for future exchange.
Savings account.
A super savings account. They are betting on the algorithm over the politician. They trust the math of the 21 million cap more than they trust the nomos of the Federal Reserve. This behavior is what Aristotle would recognize as true household management.
It's a vote of no confidence in the modern system.
And a vote of absolute confidence in the restoration.
This brings us to the conclusion of the report. And they use this Korean term, machimpyo.
Machimpyo. It means a full stop, a period at the end of a sentence.
What's the sentence?
The sentence is the long, failing history of human currency debasement. The struggle against inflation, against rulers clipping coins, against the printing press. The report argues that Bitcoin is the end of that sentence.
It stops the slide.
It creates a floor. It's the point where we return to the just measure. We had the philosophy in Athens, but not the tools. We relied on humans to enforce the rules, and humans always fail the test of greed.
They always choose the easy money.
Always. But the algorithm doesn't feel greed, it just executes the geometry.
It's a wild image when you put it all together. You start in the Agora of Athens, arguing about the nature of value, and you end up 2,300 years later looking at a string of code on a monitor. The convergence of philosophy and computer science.
So, on January 3rd, 2009, when Satoshi mined that first block,
That wasn't just a software launch. That was the moment the prophecy was fulfilled. The architect Aristotle finally met the code Satoshi. The blueprint was just waiting for 2 millennia. Satoshi poured the digital concrete.
that is a lot to process. It definitely changes how you look at that orange B logo. It's not just a payment rail, it's a philosophical argument that finally won.
And for the first time, the argument is backed by thermodynamic proof, not just words.
We're going to leave it there. A huge thank you to the authors of the Geometric Completion for this. It's not often you get to combine ancient Greece with blockchain data.
It's the only way to really understand what's happening. As always, we've only scratched the surface. Go deeper, check the sources, and ask yourself, is the money in your pocket natural, or is it just a decree? If it's just a decree, how long will that last? Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Stay curious.